So yes, I've been asked this morning to do a short presentation about One Health, EcoHealth, trying to put back what these approaches and to have all of us a same basis for the discussion of this morning and this afternoon as well. One Health, EcoHealth and animal health had changed the title. It was animal production, but I'm not so much a specialist in production, I'm more a specialist in health. In Southeast Asia, theory and practice. So, we have 45 minutes. So my idea was to start very broad, to come back to emerging infectious disease, to show you why in this world now we live, it's important to think as One Health or EcoHealth. I will give you some definition, and then I will give you an example of what has been done in Southeast Asia within the platform, GRIS platform that I'm coordinating. So first, if we go back to history about disease emergence. Very long time ago, when agriculture came and humans start to raise animals, we had what we call the first transition in epidemiology. It was 10,000 years ago that with agriculture we started domestication and those starting to have more contact with animals and zoonotic diseases appear, there were an increase of infectious disease. So that was the first transition. Then, not so long time ago, mid-19th century, with the Industrial Revolution, it was what we call the second transition, where in fact infectious disease mortality decreased because of improvement of the livelihood of people. We had increasing life expectancy, improved nutrition, antibiotics were discovered. So there were decrease of infectious disease, but increase of what we call disease of civilization, like cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, chronic diseases, or environmental diseases. So that was the second transition. And in fact now, we are what epidemiologists call the first transition. It started 30, 25 years ago, and with in fact a global new emergence of diseases. New disease, increase of mortality, re-emergence of disease that we thought we were almost eradicated. We started to have some resistance, antibiotic resistance and other type of drug resistance. And all these emerging diseases, not all, but the three-fourths of the disease, 75% were zoonotic diseases. So, this is just to give you an idea how global is it. So that is a map that I'm sure you have all seen. It's emerging, new emerging, re-emerging diseases all over the world. And here it's from 97, so it's 20 years. The number of diseases over time who emerge or re-emerge, starting from H5N1 to monkeypox. So this is really happening. It's this. We are in this third transition, and this emergence has several factors. In fact, it's a combination of factors. It's not just one thing, but it's a combination of factors. So it's coming from microbial adaptation and change to lack of political will. So it's very large. If we go give a little bit of detail about all these factors. So microbial adaptation, you have, I said already, increase of antibiotic resistance because it has been used, overused or misused in human health and animal production. There is some prophylactic or therapeutic failure in some bacterial diseases. There is resistance of vectors against pesticide. You have jumping of virus between species, so that is one factor. Another factor, global warming. So global warming, climate change, we have seen, I don't know here in Philippines, but in Europe, for example, we see it a lot. with in fact warming and climate change, and with some vectors that were in fact in northern part of Africa, arriving in south part of Europe, and these vectors are in fact bringing as well some viruses of some diseases. So you have ecology and distribution change in these vectors, you have adaptation of pathogen in these new vectors, you have increase of some vegetation, you have change of migratory patterns of wild animals, wild birds. So that is another factor. Human demographic and behavior. Here I'm sure that it's one of a big factor in Philippines. So economic development, which is good, but with economic development you have increase of population, change in the land use, with deforestation, reforestation, urbanization. You have some area which were remote that are now have access with road construction, building construction. And this urbanization in many parts of the world are what we say unsustainable, because the infrastructure is not improving as along with the increase of population. And in fact, in 2030, there is expectation that 60% of the world population will live in urban areas. So, and with this human demographic factor, you have a wildlife factor. Because of this access to remote area, with road construction, with better access in deep forests, for example in Africa or maybe here in Philippines, you have contact with wild animals that was not happening before. We know that, for example, for HIV, it was certainly one of the factors, because in fact you know that there is a viruses, SIV, similar in monkeys, in chimpanzee, and certainly with access to deep forest. It was road construction, but it was in fact lodging, so access to wood production and trade. There were more access to hunting of chimpanzee and contact between human and chimpanzee, and certainly mutation and change of the virus and emergence of new HIV viruses. Forest encroachment, habitat fragmentation, we know as well that it's a factor for emerging diseases. We have seen it in the region with Nipah and Ebola in Africa. There is access to wildlife, so to farm wild animals. One example, famous example, is emerging of new respiratory disease, SARS in China, with some production of small animal, civet in fact. Wet markets, increase of exposition, what's happening with H5N1, where you had a mix of domestic animals, wild ducks in a wet market. So that is another factor. And in fact, this wildlife is not only by contact, but it's as well a huge factor of spreading and globalization of these emerging diseases. You have a big global trade, formal trade, so 4 million birds, thousand of reptiles or primates, but there is informal trading, illegal trading. And in fact, just to show you, this was published in 2015. It's a trade flow of illegal wildlife for 3 years, between 2010 and 2013. This is for elephant, and this one is for rhinoceros. And the arrow and the shape of the arrow are the volume of animals that are traded, or part of animals that are traded. Here, for example, it's Kenya to China, or Kenya to Thailand. Here it's South Africa to Vietnam, South Africa to Mozambique. So it's an estimation, but it's just to show you that this as well has certainly a big factor of global emergence of disease. So food revolution, increasing in demand for protein of food of animal origin. In fact, we have, and that's good as well, we have a shift from poverty of 1 to 2 billion people to middle class. And this middle class want to have access to protein. So we have an increase of animal production and commercial production with high biosecurity biosecurity but high density of animals. So high concentration of animal and people in the same area, in urban area. So that is as well known as one factor. International commerce and travel. So I've seen you the exchange of wild animals, but what's crazy is the exchange between countries of travelers. So 4 million people per year travel internationally. In fact, we are all connected. There is no more places remote enough that you cannot reach. In fact, we are almost all connected. And one of the last factors in my previous slide was the political stability. That as well is one factor. When you have corruption or other priorities by the government, when you have threat of bioterrorists, when you have war, civil unrest with movement of population, what's happening in fact in Northern Africa and Europe, you have famine, you have industry scandal with bad manufacturing strategy, so that as well are factor. So all my example was just to go to these slides. In fact, as you have seen, it's very complex. Why do we have emerging or new disease emerging in our world? It's what we call in epidemiology the convergence model. It's not only one factor, it's several factors. So you need to look at different compartments, animals, humans, wildlife. You need to take into consideration different factors. Physical and the environment, the ecological factors, the social, political, economic factors, the genetic and biological factors. So in fact, meaning that if we want to work on emerging infectious disease, if we want to understand, if we want to control, if we want to be prepared, we cannot anymore, or you can, but you need as well, people that are working at the interface between animal, wildlife, and human, and including all these different factors. So this is one of the main reasons we think of One Health. We try to implement One Health. We try to implement EcoHealth. So from this, and this is very similar of what you know about One Health with this Venn diagram, human, animal, environment. So if we go to this One Health approach and give a little bit of definition, I have arbitrarily chosen 2 definitions for One Health and EcoHealth. It's my choice. You could find many other definitions in the many other presentations. So just the one I've chosen. So just to give you a little bit of history, I'm not going to make it long. I just wanted to make you think that in fact this One Health started with a veterinarian. Strange. So it was a veterinarian, an epidemiologist, a parasitologist, and he was one of the first promoting the One Medicine. So he was saying that there is no difference in paradigm between human and veterinary medicine. Both sciences share a common body of knowledge in anatomy, physiology, pathology, on the origin of disease in all species. So that was one of the big promoters of One Medicine. So from One Medicine, crossing over between veterinarians and physicians, came to One Health. Try to extend it, extend the notion, extend the intersectorialization. So One Health recognizes that humans and animals do not exist in isolation, but are part of a larger whole, a living ecosystem, and that the activities of each member affect the others. So One Health can be taken like health as a whole, human, animal, and the environment. So one definition of the One Health Commission for One Health is One Health is a collaborative effort of multiple health science professions together with their related disciplines and institutions, working locally, nationally, and globally to attain optimal health for people, domestic animals, wildlife, plants, and our environment. But, so this definition and the one I gave before, this one, it's talking about environment, it's talking about ecosystem. Some people, so this One Health was developed over time a lot from top down. So it's many international organizations like OIE, FAO, WHO, WCS for wildlife conservation, that came with this idea of we need to collaborate, we need to see the health of animal, human, environment together. So it was a top-down approach. At the same time, several people were thinking about ground approach, about looking at ecosystem. So you have it here. In my previous here, a living ecosystem. But in fact, the definition is not here anymore. These people were promoting eco-health. So, and it was more top-down approach, like looking at what community, how to solve problem community, but it was the same thinking, like we need to put things together. So, the idea for people that are thinking about eco-health more than One Health is that they look at the ecosystem health. So, what is an ecosystem? An ecosystem is a community of living organisms in conjunction with the non-living components of their environment. Air, water, mineral, soil. Interacting as a system. So these biotic and abiotic components are regarded as linking together through nutrient cycles and energy flow. So in fact, in the eco-health, the environment and the ecosystem compartment is bigger. The idea in eco-health approach is first, something which is not really appear in One Health is transdisciplinarity. I will come back to that. So, eco-health is transdisciplinary and recognize complex biophysical, social, cultural, political, and economic relationships between the ecosystem and the human health. In fact, one of the strong beliefs thinking in the eco-health approach is about ecosystem services, meaning that the ecosystem where we live provide services and are constituents of the human well-being. So in an ecosystem, you have some services that are called supporting services, so the primary production, the nutrient cycling. You have provisioning services, the food, fresh water, and so. The regulating services, climate regulation, food regulation, disease regulation, and cultural, bringing aesthetics, spiritual, education, recreational. So all these services are in fact very important for human well-being. And so the idea of eco-health that bring eco-health a little bit more than One Health, it's that we need to live in a healthy ecosystem. So an healthy ecosystem is something which is stable, sustainable, can maintain its character in composition, organization, and function over time, and its resilience to stress. So, One Health, eco-health is just a prolongation of One Health. It's the same type of thinking. We need to take health as a whole. What is a little bit further in eco-health is as well this idea of ecosystem, but the idea of transdisciplinarity, which as well is very strong in eco-health. One Health, it's not straightforward, it's not mentioned, but it's behind the idea. But in eco-health, in every book or every definition, you have this idea of transdisciplinarity. Transdisciplinarity is not easy to achieve. We look often about multidisciplinarity or interdisciplinarity. Transdisciplinarity, it's a step further. So some example, you need to do transdisciplinary science if you address real-world problems perceived by society. So the idea is, if you have an issue, you need to look at the society, at the political governance, at the economic issue. So, One Health, eco-health. One is a bit top-down, one is a bit coming from the ground, but after all, I have one of my colleagues said that it's the same wine in different bottles. We are French, so we like to talk about wine. In fact, it's just the idea inside is the same. It's just two different ways to show it and to sell it and to propose it. But the idea is really that we need to think about a system approach. We need to shift from a disease pathogen work to a thinking of healthy socio-ecosystem. We need integration. After what I've said that in fact it's the same thing. If you look at what's happening in the world about One Health EcoHealth, here what's, and I'm sure I didn't capture everything. That it's all the representation of One Health and EcoHealth, organization, label, names and trade names and so. So it could be scary, but in fact, behind all this logo and so, for me, it's the same. It's integration. It's looking at socio-ecosystem, healthy socio-ecosystem. So, my next point will be, so now we have an understanding, common understanding about why One Health and EcoHealth are important, with all the factors I gave you at the beginning. What's the difference, or is there really a difference between One Health and EcoHealth? What is behind these two approaches? And now I wanted to show you an example of what we try to apply in the GRIS research platform. So first, I'm just going to give you a few slides about what is GRIS. I'm coordinating GRIS, so I'm here to promote my platform. So GRIS, it's a research platform for management of emerging risks in Southeast Asia. The idea of GRIS is to develop multidisciplinary approach through research and training, project and scientific networking. So we promote interdisciplinary framework of understanding One Health and EcoHealth. We try to strengthen the interaction and dialogue among disciplines, sectors, and key actors. We try to contribute to improve risk management strategy, and we try with our partners to develop tailor-made recommendations from scientists to policymakers. So in this platform we are 7 partners, core members. So France, Iran, but partners in Thailand, Kasetsart University, in Laos with Nabong University, in Cambodia with the NAPRI now, in Vietnam with the NIVR, in Indonesia with Gadjah Mada University, and in Philippines with Mindanao, Central Mindanao University. That are the core members. But in fact, GRIS is much more than that. We have 18 regional and international associate partners, with UPLB, CESAM UPLB, one of them, and we have collaborative center with the international organization. And in fact, in GRIS, we try to implement this One Health and EcoHealth thinking with our partners. So the idea is to develop multidisciplinary approach to research, training, project, scientific networking. And one as well, other objective is to strengthen synergy among these different research institutions coming from different sectors. And one of the biggest challenges when you do that is trying to merge social science and biomedical science. If you look at One Health and EcoHealth, the idea, so between animal, human environments, it's one level, but another level which is behind, it's the different type of field science that you can implement to do that, and there is a kind of clear separation in education if you have been trained as a biomedical scientist or if you have been trained as a sociologist or economist. And in GRIS, we try to make people work together and to find tools, method to make people work together. So participatory approach, participatory modeling, social networking, and so. So for that, we have a network of expertise with different skills and competence. We do training, different type of training for participatory epidemiology to policy transfer with policy brief to bioethics. And we have a master educational program. But we have projects. So, and one of the projects I want to show you is the Comacross project, this one. It was a 4 years project, an Europed project of €4 million. It just finished beginning of this year. It was for Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia. And I think it's a nice example to keep in mind for our discussion later on today. So the idea of this Come Across project was to implement One Health Equals, was to try to find a way of how to do transdisciplinarity or interdisciplinarity. Because health risk cannot be solved alone through commercial and disciplinary. You need to link all these disciplines: public health, social science, agricultural science, animal health, environmental science, ecological science, engineering. So you need to find a way to share and to have synergy between these different fields. But it's not only that. If you want to do EcoHealth or One Health approach, you need as well to work cross-sectoral. So you need to put discipline together, but you need as well from different scale, administrative scales, special scale, making people working together. So from local authorities, community, policymakers, researchers, population at risk, private sector, all these people need to work together as well. So Come Across was really based on that. How can we manage that? So how can we articulate discussion between stakeholders? So one of the main approach that was decided to be used during this project was participatory modeling. So the idea was relying on participatory and collaborative methods. The idea was to promote system thinking. So participatory modeling or COMMOD, it's a way of. It has been used, to make it simple, it has been used a lot to make people working together when you have a resource issue. For example, of water, when you have a construction of a dam somewhere, and this dam, water dam, is causing problem at different levels. So you have different power playing between the stakeholders. People maybe not agree on how to implement this, and the resource can be seen differently between the different stakeholders. So participatory modeling, it's first thing, you have an individual representation of the resource, meaning like water, but in our case the resource is health. Health can be seen as a common resource. So for Come Across, the resource was health. So you have an individual vision of this resource. Using participatory modeling, making people together, trying to come with a common representation. So to design a model to come with this complex system between the different stakeholders, livestock breeders, people, traders, policymakers, veterinarians, medical sectors, coming together and have a shared representation of this system. And in fact, in participatory modeling, this system is really modelized. We use a multi-agent model, so computerized. We make it, and then when people agree on a common system, we make small change. We model the change, and like this, people can discuss about how we could make the change happening, what's the most accurate change for everybody, how they could come to an agreement on what could be done, how it could be done. So the idea is an iterative process. It's, you have your complex system. This is for everyone a different representation of this system. We have modeling and focus group discussion and computer modelization. You have a common representation. And from this common representation, the idea is to make each individual changing his representation, take into consideration how other stakeholders see the system. So that was the main approach in Come Across. And to do that, we had 3 case studies. We had one for waste management and health in Thailand, one on encephalitis control in Cambodia, for Japanese encephalitis and Nipah viruses, and one on parasitic neglected zoonotic diseases for family pig farming in Laos. So, for the Thai case, it was about environmental management, wastewater release. So this came from our stakeholders, our communities. When we designed the project, we started to think about leptospirosis. It was just after a big flood in Thailand, 2011, when we designed the project. And what came in our idea with the partner, it was, okay, leptospirosis is certainly a big issue. And in fact, when we started to implement the project in Ayutthaya province, our stakeholder told us, leptospirosis is not a problem, it's not an issue. We know we have it, we know the sign, we know where to go when we have leptospirosis, we know that it's transmitted by rodents, and we know that cattle can as well be a risk, so it's not a problem. Here in our community, the problem is waste management, water purity, and we have a huge problem of rabies. That came a little bit after doing the project. So we changed. Our project was about tools, about how making people working together. So it was easy to change. So we shifted. We said, okay, if the community wants to work on waste management, we work on waste management. So the idea, and what was done, is we put stakeholders working together during workshops, trying to aim them at highlighting the gaps in coordination across agriculture, environment and health sectors, at municipality and at provincial level. We try to look at stakeholders' risk perception about these different factors, and especially waste management risk factors. We made different studies to rely on scientific-based evidence. So we did epidemiological study, risk analysis, risk mapping for management issue of waste, of rabies, because it was as well an issue. And we put all this input together, and this allows us to modify and implement local policy to improve rabies management. We had health volunteer training for dogs vaccination, stray dog surveillance, local waste management facilities that was set up. We developed it, I will show you later, a participatory game. So we empowered the local community, and the local community came with local policy, in fact. But putting everybody together and starting with something was really a problem for the community, and not something that at the beginning we thought it was a problem. For now, we work on parasitic foodborne diseases. So this was in one area. It was a major sanitary burden faced by farmer communities. It has significant impact on human health, livelihood and economy, and it's still a neglected disease. So the idea first was to understand risk-related perception and practice, and to establish, again, a cross-sectoral collaboration platform to promote prevention and control. And it's what we did over the 4 years. In fact, by doing this collaborative modeling approach, we end up with an inter-ministerial platform, which is still on, even after the project finished. This inter-ministerial platform, it was 7 ministries from army to communication to public health to agriculture and so on. So this idea was to have every stakeholders being able to address this problem, to build capacity of the operators of integrating for integrative approach, and to design intervention at local level with national partners. So this was, in fact, over the 4 years, it was some cycle, so several meetings with different levels before we managed to have this interministerial platform. And in Cambodia, it was very specific. It was on 2 diseases, Japanese encephalitis and Nipah virus. The idea was to improve the control measure. And if I look at one example, the Nipah virus, so here's the area where you have detected the viruses. It's a very complex disease. You have reservoir, you have bats, you have pigs, you have human behavior, so you have the ecology. So you need to look at the biology for the virus, the epidemiology of the disease, of course, but you need to look at the ecology of the wild animals, the environmental science of where the animals are living, and the veterinary science with the pig production, and the anthropology about behavior of people. And it's what we did. So we try to look at every discipline, every sector. We try to integrate all this data together. So we had phylogenetic study, we did some modeling about transmission of the viruses between the different species. We had monthly census, sampling blood samples of animals, pigs, and of humans. We have landscape remote sensing to select and to detect habitat for bats. And we had anthropology study, looking at behavior of people and so on. And that was all integrated. And how we did integrate it, so of course we did, we had the article and we wrote that in a highly good scientific journal. But we did something else. We managed to implement a role-playing game for the community, for the people we were working with. So we had all this information put in a game, a role-playing game, and we designed that with the community to understand how they are working, but as well to try to upgrade their knowledge, their risk behavior, and so on. And during this project, the idea was really to articulate and integrating all these challenges. When you remember at the beginning when I was talking about panel sequence, all these different factors, all what we want to integrate together, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to request. It's a challenge to the oneness. So here, it's just showing you one method how we can overcome this challenge. So the idea was really to try to do transdisciplinary research, to facilitate mutual learning, to reinforce the environment dimension, because often, if you look at One Health study, the environment or the ecosystem dimension is the poor sector, is the one with less people, with less knowledge. So we try to overcome that and we try to make it happen. So from knowledge to action. And we apply system thinking. So we characterize a complex system by modelization, we define together the problem, and we try to design solution by participatory approach. So, this is what I said, journal publication about One Health, about system approach. But I just wanted, before we have a short movie, so about it's 3 minutes. At break time?
Yeah, break time.
Okay. So I'm not going to show you my movie. So in fact, it's just about what has been happening in Comecross. You have pictures, nice pictures about Thailand and Laos. And just to finish my presentation, we had some partnership with private sector. And the game we did for NIPA was translated in Rabies game. So it's a playing role game with cards, with pawns. You can be a veterinarian, you can be a medical doctor, you can be a dog owner. And this game is to increase awareness of people how to manage rabies dog. And that was one of the outputs that we came together. And that's all for my talk. Thank you very much for your attention.